As the sun glinted off the waves, billionaire Robert Powell's luxury yacht glided through the calm waters until chaos erupted. A pod of orcas appeared without warning, targeting the vessel with terrifying precision, repeatedly ramming the hull as the crew scrambled for safety. The shocking attack, captured on camera, left viewers stunned and sparked global concern. But Powell's ordeal is just one part of a troubling trend. These powerful predators are striking boats with increasing aggression, leaving sailors and scientists searching for answers. It was a picture-perfect morning as billionaire Robert Powell, a well-known sailing enthusiast and prominent investor, embarked on what was meant to be a tranquil voyage aboard his luxury yacht. Powell, an avid sea traveler, had chosen a pristine stretch of open water for his trip, surrounded by his small but trusted crew. The yacht, equipped with cutting-edge technology and unparalleled luxury, cut through the calm waves as the sunlight reflected off its polished surface. For Powell, the voyage was meant to be a moment of reprieve, far from the corporate boardrooms and flashing cameras that usually surrounded him. However, what started as an idyllic escape would soon descend into chaos. As the yacht cruised effortlessly, the crew noticed a strange disturbance in the water ahead. Small ripples grew larger, and the unmistakable dorsal fins of orcas began slicing through the waves. At first, the sight seemed harmless. Perhaps the orcas were curious about the large vessel. Powell, standing on the deck, marveled at their beauty, unaware that this pod of apex predators had no intention of mere observation. Without warning, the orcas closed the distance, and the first strike came like a thunderclap. A massive jolt rocked the yacht, sending the crew staggering. "What was that?" one of the crew members shouted, scrambling to grab onto the railings as panic set in. Before anyone could recover, another collision followed. This time it was more powerful, more deliberate. The sound of the impact echoed through the yacht, vibrating across its frame. Robert Powell, gripped by both fear and disbelief, watched as the pod of orcas circled the yacht, their movements coordinated and almost calculated. "They're going for the rudder!" yelled the first mate as he rushed toward the navigation controls. The orcas, in what seemed like a coordinated assault, rammed the rudder again and again with their immense strength. The yacht shuddered violently, pitching and yawing under the onslaught. Powell's crew scrambled to assess the damage, but the situation was worsening by the second. The once serene waters churned around them, a swirling frenzy of white foam and sleek black fins. One of the crew members instinctively grabbed a camera, capturing the astonishing attack as it unfolded. Through the lens, the true scale of the ordeal became clear. Massive orcas, each weighing thousands of pounds, were launching themselves at the rudder and hull with relentless precision. The footage showed the animals rising out of the water, their tails crashing down with thunderous force before diving back beneath the surface. What had begun as confusion quickly transformed into terror, both on board and later for anyone who would view the footage. "Steer away! Move the yacht!" Powell barked, but it was no use. The orcas had already disabled the yacht's primary steering mechanism. The vessel, now vulnerable and drifting, became a sitting target for the persistent pod. As another loud crash reverberated through the hull, Powell's voice betrayed his fear. "Are they trying to sink us?" The crew fought to regain control, their hands working frantically to stabilize the yacht while shouts and alarms filled the air. Onboard systems began to register damage warnings, deep dents in the hull, weakening structural integrity, and the rudder now barely functional. Every hit threatened to compromise the yacht further, and Powell's team could do little but brace for impact and hope the orcas would relent. The attack continued for what felt like an eternity. Robert Powell, a man used to solving complex financial challenges, found himself in a situation far beyond his control. "I've never seen anything like this," he later admitted. "You don't realize how powerful these animals are until you're at their mercy." Finally, after what the crew estimated to be nearly 45 minutes of relentless strikes, the orcas began to disperse, leaving behind a vessel battered and partially disabled. Silence fell over the scene as the crew assessed the damage, their hands trembling with adrenaline. Powell stood on the deck, surveying the battered yacht and the trail of disturbance left by the pod. With the yacht's rudder rendered inoperable, the crew immediately called for assistance. Fortunately, they were within range of maritime support, and a rescue operation was swiftly coordinated. A nearby patrol vessel responded, towing the damaged yacht to the nearest port for emergency repairs. Powell, though visibly shaken, remained composed as they made their way to safety. The footage of the attack, later released to the public, sent shockwaves through the maritime community and beyond. Videos showed the raw power of the orcas. Images of the massive predators methodically striking the yacht spread across social media and news outlets. Marine experts and sailors alike were left stunned by the sheer aggression and precision displayed by the animals. The incident reignited global debates surrounding orca behavior. Were these interactions the result of environmental changes, learned behavior, or stress caused by human activity? Powell, reflecting on his terrifying experience, expressed a newfound respect for the ocean's unpredictability. We think we understand nature, but the reality is far more humbling. These creatures are majestic, but their power commands respect and caution. Marine biologists weighed in on the event, linking it to a pattern of orca aggression observed in recent years, particularly in regions like the Strait of Gibraltar and northern European waters. Some researchers theorize that these pods were exhibiting learned behaviors, possibly passed down through generations of orcas. Others speculated that increased boat traffic and environmental stressors could be contributing to these targeted attacks. It was a clear and calm morning in June 2023, when a seasoned Dutch sailor set off on a solo voyage across the northern waters of Europe. A retired mariner with decades of experience, he had embarked on this journey to find solitude and reconnect with the sea he loved. The quiet expanse of water stretched endlessly around him, broken only by the gentle lapping of waves against the hull of his 40-foot sailing yacht. The boat hummed softly, propelled forward by the steady wind, as the sailor enjoyed his morning coffee and a rare moment of serenity. But the tranquility would not last. As the yacht glided through the calm waters, an eerie disturbance caught the sailor's attention. Out of the corner of his eye, he noticed ripples in the water, too large to be caused by a simple swell. Instinctively, he scanned the horizon, expecting to see a passing pod of dolphins, or perhaps a whale. Instead, a dark dorsal fin emerged, slicing through the water like a knife. His pulse quickened as the massive fin drew closer, accompanied by faint splashes. The sailor's hands tightened around the wheel. He knew the silhouette well. It was an orca. Before he could fully process the situation, the attack began. A sudden, bone-jarring impact reverberated through the hull of the yacht. The boat lurched violently to one side, knocking the sailor off balance and sending his coffee spilling across the deck. He scrambled to his feet, his heart pounding, as another loud thud echoed beneath him. The rudder groaned under the force of the strike, and the vibrations rippled through the vessel. "What's happening?" he muttered aloud, panic rising in his chest. He peered over the edge of the boat and saw the unmistakable black and white form of an orca gliding just below the surface. The orca turned sharply, its massive frame pivoting with alarming precision, before slamming into the rudder once again. The sailor staggered back, clutching the side of the boat as the impact threatened to throw him off his feet. It was clear the animal was not acting out of curiosity. This was deliberate. The rudder, the very mechanism that steered the yacht, had become the target of a calculated assault. The sailor's training kicked in. He rushed to the helm, gripping the wheel and trying to steer away from the onslaught. But the damage had already begun to take its toll. The yacht's movements grew sluggish, unresponsive to his commands. The rudder, now weakened, resisted his efforts. He glanced back at the water, just in time to see the orca surface again, its powerful tail sending a wave crashing against the boat. The sailor's breath hitched as he realized the animal was not alone. A second dorsal fin appeared, then a third. A small pod of orcas had surrounded the yacht, and their coordinated movements filled him with dread. The attacks persisted. With each strike, the yacht groaned louder, its once sturdy hull now creaking under the relentless pressure. The sailor's hands trembled as he scrambled to assess the damage. "Come on, hold together," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the pounding of his heart. He reached for the radio, his fingers fumbling as he tried to send out a distress signal. Static crackled to life as he called for help, his voice tinged with desperation. "This is a sailing vessel under attack. I need assistance. Please respond." Hours seemed to stretch into eternity as the orcas continued their assault. The sailor, isolated and vulnerable, did everything he could to keep calm. He attempted to distract the animals by revving the engine and making loud noises, banging on the side of the boat with a wrench. But the orcas were undeterred. They circled the yacht with predatory precision, diving beneath the hull before resurfacing to deliver another calculated strike to the rudder. The sailor could do nothing but watch as his yacht, his only refuge in the vast sea, sustained blow after blow. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the pod seemed to lose interest. The attacks lessened, and the orcas began to drift away, their fins disappearing beneath the waves as suddenly as they had appeared. The sailor collapsed onto the deck, his limbs weak from exhaustion and adrenaline. The yacht was battered, its rudder damaged to the point of near-complete failure, and the hull showed signs of stress fractures from the repeated impacts. With trembling hands, the sailor activated the distress beacon, a final plea for assistance. Hours later, a nearby vessel responding to the emergency signal arrived on the scene. The rescue team found the sailor slumped on his deck, weary but alive. They towed the damaged yacht to the nearest port, where it became clear just how extensive the destruction had been. The rudder was mangled beyond repair, and parts of the hull bore deep dents and scratches as if the yacht had been caught in the grip of an enormous vice. News of the attack spread quickly, adding to the growing list of alarming encounters between orcas and boats. Marine biologists were particularly concerned because this incident marked one of the first recorded attacks in northern waters near the Shetland Islands. Previously, aggressive orca behavior had been concentrated in southern European waters like the Strait of Gibraltar. The attack off the Shetland Islands signaled an unsettling expansion of the geographical range of these incidents. The Bay of Biscay, a stretch of water famed for its beauty but feared for its temperamental weather, had recently gained notoriety for a different reason: a series of unsettling orca attacks. On July 22, 2023, the crew of a mid-sized yacht found themselves at the center of one such incident, one that would turn their calm voyage into a nightmare they would never forget. The yacht, a sturdy and well-maintained vessel, was manned by a seasoned skipper and his two crew members. They had set sail early that morning, cutting smoothly through the waters of the Bay of Biscay, under clear skies and gentle winds. The region, straddling the borders of France and Spain, had long been a favorite for sailors and adventurers alike. But lately, reports of orcas targeting boats have created a palpable unease among the sailing community. The crew, aware of the recent stories, dismissed the incidents as rare and unlikely to happen to them. After all, the ocean had always been their friend, a space of peace and freedom. That tranquility was shattered in an instant. As the yacht sailed deeper into open waters, one of the crew members noticed an odd disturbance in the waves. A dark, towering dorsal fin pierced the surface, followed by another. The skipper, his instincts sharp after years at sea, immediately recognized the unmistakable silhouettes of orcas. "Keep an eye on them," he muttered, his voice calm but taut with tension. Orcas had often been a pleasant sight on past voyages, but something about this pod felt different. The animals seemed too deliberate, too focused. The crew barely had time to process what was happening when the first strike hit. A loud thud reverberated through the hull, jolting the entire boat and nearly knocking one crew member off his feet. The skipper grabbed the wheel instinctively, scanning the water as the yacht rocked violently. A second, harder impact followed almost immediately, this time to the rudder. The boat shuddered under the force, its movement suddenly erratic as the rudder's stability faltered. "Rudder's hit! We're losing control!" shouted one of the crew. The skipper's face turned pale. He spun the wheel, trying to stabilize the yacht, but the orcas were relentless. The pod, a group of at least 4, seemed to have a singular goal: the destruction of the boat's rudder. They struck again and again with military precision, their massive bodies ramming the vessel like battering rams. Each hit sent vibrations through the yacht, the sound of impact echoing like gunfire. Panic began to set in. The crew, shouting over the crashing waves and the thuds of the orca's strikes, scrambled to assess the damage. Water had begun to seep into the lower decks, and the rudder's movements were becoming increasingly unresponsive. The skipper ordered one crew member to send out a Mayday distress signal. "We need help! Now!" he yelled, trying to keep his voice steady despite the chaos. The pod showed no sign of relenting. One orca surfaced near the stern, its sleek black and white form looming ominously close before diving again. Seconds later, another strike hit the rudder, this time with enough force to send the entire yacht lurching sideways. "They're trying to take us out!" one of the crew shouted, his voice edged with fear. The skipper's training kept him focused, but even he knew the situation was spiraling out of control. He cut the engine in a desperate attempt to make the boat less enticing, hoping the lack of vibrations might dissuade the orcas. The strikes slowed but didn't stop entirely. The pod continued to circle the yacht like predators assessing their prey, occasionally surfacing to deliver another calculated blow. Time seemed to stretch endlessly as the crew waited in tense silence, watching the water for any sign of the orca's next move. Every creak of the damaged rudder sent shivers down their spines, and the thought of the yacht becoming completely inoperable loomed over them like a storm cloud. The distress call had gone out, but in such open waters, help was still far away. After what felt like an eternity, the orcas began to move off. One by one, the fins disappeared beneath the surface, leaving only ripples in their wake. The crew exhaled collectively, though the tension remained thick in the air. The skipper, sweating and visibly shaken, inspected the damage as best he could. The rudder was severely compromised, and the yacht's ability to steer was minimal. "We limped to the nearest port," he said firmly, rallying his exhausted crew. "We're not staying out here any longer." Guided by sheer determination and the aid of emergency backup systems, the crew managed to inch their way toward the nearest port. The yacht, once proud and sturdy, now moved sluggishly through the water, its movements a shadow of its former grace. Hours later, they reached safety, docking at a small marina where rescuers and maritime authorities awaited them. The crew disembarked, their faces pale and bodies weary, but they were safe. Upon inspection, the yacht's rudder was found to be destroyed beyond repair, with large dents along the hull indicating the sheer power of the Orca's strikes. Maritime authorities documented the incident, adding it to a growing list of similar attacks occurring in the region. The Bay of Biscay, once a sailor's paradise, was now becoming a hotspot for these alarming encounters. If you enjoyed this video, watch our next one shown on screen.